Hello.
We good?
Hey, Tim. We've been never better.
We are so professional. And, I was sitting here thinking, like, what am I going to say in the beginning? And I was going to say, welcome back to the warehouse and thank you guys for coming. And then really I just zoned out and looked stupid.
Yeah, I'll do it for you guys. Hey, thanks for joining us again today. And today on the show, we've got Tim Hudson, long-time listener.
We've had the Tim Hudson show, and it was not a good one, Brian.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
I didn't make it that far yet. And Chase, you're Chase, is that correct?
Do what?
Chase, is that right?
Yes.
Never got formally introduced.
No, I am Chase. Sorry about Tim being rude host. I'm Chase. That's Brian. You guys get to watch all of this first. We're not even going to edit any of this.
Yeah, well, we've really been looking forward to having you guys. So appreciate you.
The famous words of Bill O'Reilly, do it live.
Yeah.
So you guys, we got Bryan Gray from The Blamed. Do you ever feel like that's your last name is like Brian and your last name is from The Blamed?
Oh, completely. Like even in my jobs, they call me Bryan Gray.
Yeah, so. But get this though. So I was this 2 minutes old when I figured this out. So I looked up, Brian's got a really cool Wikipedia. You got a really extensive, it's good. And it's got a list of all the bands, and there's a bunch of stuff on here that I wasn't aware of. So I'm just going to read it straight from Wikipedia. Currently, Brian, you are in The Blamed and The Satire. Formerly, Rocks and Pink Cement, Blenderhead, Mend, Left Out, 6 Feet Deep. I didn't know you were in 6 Feet Deep. Dang. The Blamed is Dead. We knew that one. And live, Mortal, Clank, and Living Sacrifice.
Like the band live, or he also is in live, like he plays with those guys?
Plays with them live.
I played live with them. I actually played on a Mortal CD.
Dang, man.
They messed up my name in credits.
Well, and what I was going to say, and I'm going to continue to say this, Brian, honest to God, you guys, if you're not familiar with Bryan Gray, you should. You're familiar with someone that he gave them their start or inspired or whatever. Brian is with not a hint of hyperbole, one of probably the top 3 or 4 unsung heroes of this whole scene. You've been involved in every important movement.
I'm missing the gene where I can take a compliment, so thanks.
Well, just let me just continue to go on with it. I mean, tell me where the cool stuff, what's not cool here. I mean, absolutely involved with Cornerstone. I mean, were you with that from the beginning, or was it?
No, 98.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely integral to Cornerstone. I mean, involved with every cool band you can imagine, including the ones that I just mentioned that you fronted and everything. I mean, you probably wouldn't even be able to remember it. I let that stand as a statement. I was going to ask how many bands that got ginormous did you give their start to? I mean, seriously. I mean, did you take Under Oath out on their first tour or what? No. Crucified, stuff like that.
Crucified was my heroes. No, I mean, it was like we took POD to Cornerstone the first year.
That's kind of a thing.
That's a big thing here in Bartlesville, Brian.
Yeah.
They were.
Oh yeah, that's right. They were managed by Bartlesville.
Yeah,
the whole city. We all came together, managed the band.
We don't have that much else here, so the things that we do have, we make a big deal.
Hot hamburgers, and POD. That's what we do.
Do they still have Kettle there?
No. Well, the building's there, but it's not the Kettle anymore.
Which one is that one?
Medusa's.
Oh, that's. Oh, yeah.
It
was
to be a Kettle.
Ooh.
What do you think of that? I'm always like, that seems like a scary place to eat. Medusa's.
It's actually not bad.
I think I've had takeout from there.
And they do like 99-cent margarita night or something like that.
Next time you come here, Brian, that's where we'll go.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys are finding this out. I mean, I assume that you've watched more than one Warehouse podcast, although probably if I didn't know me and us, I probably wouldn't watch any more than one, but I'm assuming that they do. So you're finding that we just kind of go in all directions, which we're doing right now. But
yes.
So with that said, so take me back to the beginning of this, Brian. Like you literally were there at the very inception of, what I refer to as the scene. I mean, I would say like HM, Cornerstone era, Tooth and Nail era, that kind of stuff.
Well, see, because it's funny because you and I are the same age, but the scene really precursored a little bit of what you're talking about because there was the Christian metal scene that then went into like the Christian thrash scene. But you had those, I guess they were early 90s, late 80s, Deliverance, Vengeance, Tourniquet. And that was where I joined Mortal, who was on Intense Frontline Records. And that was my start into it. And then when you get into the tooth and nail side of it, a lot of people don't know Brandon Ebel worked for Frontline Records. So that's how I met Brandon, was he would take pictures of Mortal and come to all our shows and be the guy from Frontline.
Nice. What do you think in those days? I mean, what did that seem like then? Because it seems like on the outside, it almost seems like the bands hadn't really found a home yet. It's like they were looking for cool stuff, but it wasn't.
Well, it was dominated by the metal scene, which was horrible. Like, I don't want to dog those bands because I'm fans of them all. But I mean, it was where you would go play a show and the metal bands would, make sure it was known that you were the opener. And then, but Mortal was that scene was dying. Nirvana probably came out during my tenure with Mortal. And so, see, we would go play shows and we were treated a little, I'm trying to think, I won't name names, but like we went to Atlanta Fest on the Mortal tour and it was just huge. It's at Six Flags Atlanta.
Yeah.
There were people lined up to get into the show. Well, we didn't know what we were doing, and we ended up getting there a little late because getting into Six Flags as an artist isn't just easy.
Yeah.
No.
There's pre-cell phone. We might have a fax with
Yeah.
directions on how to get in there. So we got there late, and the headliner was a metal band. And actually, because it was real competitive, they actually said we couldn't play our first show. At those amusement park shows, you played twice. And so I remember we got there and we were actually told we could only play our second set.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just, but that vibe existed across the board. And of course, it was like some tour manager being like, hey, you guys are late and we can't move our gear. But then when we played our second set, we still had to set up in front of their gear. So it was kind of like,
Yeah.
sure. But I went through that for years because, like it's infamous, the Christian scene is a few years behind. So even after Nirvana hit and destroyed a lot of that, there still was some residual in the Christian scene. And you just were like, whatever. They made you play harder. To be honest, like that Atlanta Fest, it was me, Jeff Ballou, and Jerome and Gyro. And I think we about broke the stage because we were like, all right, well, we're going to show you how we do this. And then,
what was their reaction? I'm sure the kids were way into it because it was super cutting edge and awesome. And
yeah, well, because like at that point you had some fringe stage we were on, and it was with the metal band, and Sincerely Paul opened for us, which was like kind of gothy, moody. But then on the bigger stage was the Prayer Chain and Dakota Motor Company, and we were friends with all those folks, and so it was just funny, Like, of course, as a punk rocker playing in that world, I was like, cool. So I get to go on roller coasters now for an hour. Like, I'm out.
And you also you get to go back like in their little area and eat the food for like way cheaper.
Oh yeah.
I did a couple of those.
Yes.
Super cool. Like you get all of the fried food for $2.50 as opposed to like $9 where the people are paying.
Wow.
I think they had catering for us or something. I don't remember. Like, I think we were really restricted to where we were like, I barely remember because I knew I had toured with the merch guy for the Prayer Chain in my garage band, Rocks and Pink Cement.
Yeah.
And he was in an underground band called Hold True. We had toured the West Coast. So him and the truth is I feel bad, I can't remember his name. But we went and hung out for the hours I had off and rode roller coasters for a bit. And it was like fun to catch up. So I think I didn't even eat and then played the show. And then
was there a I've made it moment when you were riding roller coasters and stuff?
No, I mean, you've had a couple of those moments. I never had an I made it moment. My career is the funny one because Mortal was the biggest band I was ever in. So everything from the start to now has been just a slow
I remember in the old days, Jason Martin, which I'm sure you know him really well, and like he's got this kind of, I don't know, like apocalyptic sense of humor, if that makes any sense. And like I remember him coming in one time, and they were big. I mean, it was like on Americana, I think. And I was like, "How's things going, man?" And he's like, "Well, they haven't dropped us yet."
Yeah.
I mean, just constant, like everything's just like sad Eeyore thing.
Well, you got to live it. You got to be real. So
yeah, but everything you've done though, I mean, it's kind of amazing that like it's really had massive wheels. I mean, the influence that all of your bands have had is crazy on every level. I mean, on touring, on the label, on the all of it.
we just try to be diligent, I guess. You know me in compliments, but
well, I got to point something out before we start going here. So I feel like we're old school here, Brian, because I'm wearing the Me Without You, and you got Dogwood, I think.
Yeah,
right.
I wore my Dogwood shirt.
Yeah. It's yeah.
So old school. Did you guys see the last night's special, the boy band Christmas? That will make you feel old. Like Chris Kirkpatrick and Joey Fatone trying to. It was all the throwaway members of every boy band. Like it was the other three guys in 98 Degrees. Yeah. Bobby Brown was there though. Bobby, yeah. And then the Jewish guy from Boys to Men was like,
"Oh gosh,
yeah, I do Hanukkah, so don't know why I'm on this Christmas special."
Yeah,
but it was fun. Like I like that all of this is kind of like the Furnace Fest deal and here and like reliving the good old days of music,
the nostalgia. I am by my good excuses. I worked third, so I didn't see the Christmas special.
Oh, it's on Hulu. You can go back and Hulu it.
I'll watch it tonight.
Since you mentioned that, what did you think of Furnace Fest? What was your impression of that?
I only got to go for a day and a half, but I loved it. It was great.
God, I was thinking about that the other day. I think that was lightning in a bottle. I don't think we're ever going to be able to match that. I mean, because people were just so, everybody's been locked up and everything. And like, everybody's wanting to go to shows. And so here's this crowd that's ready for it. And here's these bands that's ready to go. And I mean, that to me that was just a moment in time as far as I'm concerned. I don't think, I think you were there, you weren't. And
they definitely did the announcement. We can plug it here for the tickets went on sale for next year. But I definitely had that moment where I thought, can that lightning strike twice? I hope so, because it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, see, I just don't. I mean, I think it'll be awesome. I don't want to act like it's not going to be great, but I just think that it won't be the same next year because I think that you can't recapture that. I've been sitting at home for 2 years, and we thought we were all going to die and stuff, and nope, we're going to see my favorite band in a awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of.
No, I agree. I mean, just even seeing Stavesacre, and that was probably the last time they're ever going to play. I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah, I was actually, this is how I sold my wife on it. I was like, this is going to be our last hurrah. I've got to go to I have to go to this. And thankfully she was like, okay, all right, Daddy, that'll work.
Yep. Yeah. And now he's doing a podcast.
Yeah. And then of course it was kind of like, oh yeah, they're doing it next year too. So.
We're going to cover it. That's it. Brian Gray says that we're going to cover Furnace Fest.
You should.
Furnace Fest live.
100%.
We'll have a stage. We'll have the warehouse stage.
Yes.
Oh God. We didn't really do that at Cornerstone, but we always got bands on, like the HM stage and stuff like that. Well, since we're on that, tell us, so how did this whole thing with Cornerstone happen with you? Because you were like stage manager for everything.
I moved to Jesus People, and they just tell you where to work. That's really it.
Well, that seems more. I mean, it seems more awesome than that, though.
No, it really stage managing. So, I was in a band. One of the terms we throw around within the Blamed when we're dealing with music is, it's tough when you get this person to help guest on this because if they don't speak the language. Well, I spoke the language, obviously, being a touring artist. So when I went to Cornerstone, I'd already played there. I moved there in 98 and worked And then my first show cornerstone was 93. So I probably had attended 5 years as an artist. And then I think that was even the year 98 and 99 where the girl lost her eye.
Oh, yeah.
At the 5-iron show. And a lot of people don't realize that actually almost shut the festival down.
Wow.
So she lost her eye?
Yeah, like some friends of mine were actually there in the crowd when it happened. You click the lights off, everybody screams, the house lights and the band comes on and the stage lights go on. The second the house lights went off, I wasn't running that show, by the way. It was a 5-iron Frenzy show. They had thrown out CDs, and some raver kid got his and went, I already have this, and flung it as hard as he could behind him in the air. So it was like spinning like a ninja star, and the lights went out, and the poor lady didn't even see it coming.
Oh,
like Final Destination.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like, Brian, there were every year that I went, there was always something that happened. I remember, didn't somebody get knocked out at Project 86 or something one year or something like that? I mean,
they were typically faking it, which was the worst. That was how I ended up in main stage. Is because they were running behind every year. And they called me down one year for something else. I was like, bring us this. And I brought them like maybe a combo amp they needed for my stage. And I had downtime. And I pull up, probably might even that. I think Project is on stage. There's a girl inside the barricade lying in the ground. And they've shut the show down. They ran the whole night behind, like an hour and a half plus. And I walk up and I see the girl lay on the ground, glowing with her eyes open as her hero standing on the stage praying over her. And I was like, they're like, well, what do you do at the underground stage? And I was like, haul them out the tent. They were like, and they were like, what do you mean? I was like, man, this ain't like that. You just got to get them. Let's say they really were heat exhausted, hurt or something.
Yeah.
Having them on the ground underneath all these lights around all these people. There's no air. There's no water. Like, drag them out. We always had volunteer medical. So I remember we had a meeting about it, and one of the volunteer EMTs was like, you could get sued for that. And I was like, they're not hurt. It's like, they're all faking it. And I know that if they have a seizure, then we don't move them. If someone's seizing, we stop. And that should be the only reason you're stopping the show. So, and we had one girl one year fake having a seizure, shut down a Norma Jean show. We sent her out the grounds in an ambulance. The second the ambulance got there, she tried to stand up and walk away, and I was surrounded by.
Was that the one where everybody said she was possessed? Like the next day?
What's that?
Was that the time that everybody said she was possessed the next day? Or is that a different?
But there was the one first year Corey from Norma Jean sang with them, and there was a delay, so I couldn't hear you.
Oh, that one year, and it would have been probably either because they were Ludacris before they were Norma Jean. It would have been either
you guys on Frozen. Say it one more time, Tim.
Oh, they were Ludacris before they were Norma Jean. And I want to say it was like the first or second year that they were actually Norma Jean, I think. And I remember I didn't go to it. And a bunch of people in my group came back and they were like, this girl got possessed by demons in front of the stage at Norma Jean. And I'm kind of, I didn't go. And I'm kind of like, are you serious? What? And then I found out many years later that it was like a put on. Like, but what I'm saying is that the same time that you're talking about, or is that a different?
Are you having a hard time hearing us, Brian? Oh, Brian just dropped out.
Maybe we will need some editing.
We might actually have to edit this one. Yeah, his Wi-Fi was getting blurry. So let's yep, he just dropped. Let's see if he pops back up in. There he is. There he is. You know what? We'll just keep it going. We're doing good.
Yeah, everything froze. I was like, what happened? And then it sent me to a page.
Are you good now?
I think so.
All right, sweet.
Luckily, I think people have the bar set pretty low for warehouse stuff.
Yeah, this is like house lights.
Exactly.
The expectations aren't real high. Well, what I was saying, I don't know if you caught the whole thing. So apparently, one of the first years that they were Norma Jean, because they were Ludicrous before that.
Yep.
And like I remember I didn't go to the show, and a bunch of our group came back and said some girl got possessed at Norma Jean. And then I found out like years later that like, oh, it was all, a hoax and all this. And I was wondering, was that the same time that you were talking about? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, it's funny, the crazy stuff. What's the craziest thing you remember about Cornerstone? You probably know all kinds of nutty stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff. Well, like even that night, what was funny wasn't funny is we went to pull her out of the tent like we always do. And she said, I have seizures. And I was like, I'm out. We have to stop. And they had finished their set, and they were about to do that 8-minute song from Bless the Martyr, the encore. And she was acting crazy. We had to clear the tent. It was bad. I mean, like youth group kids like would run up when I wasn't paying attention. I remember some dude like climbing on top of her and putting his hands like on her upper chest. And I was like, what do you do? I grabbed the guy. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm praying for her. And I threw him out the tent. I'm like, pray out here. And but he was like, he tried to yell at me for getting in the way of the Holy Spirit or something, and I was just like,
you gotta watch that, Brian. You can't get in the way of that.
I know, but what was tripped with that was the ambulance showed up, and we had her in her group. They didn't realize what we were doing. We had them corralled and surrounded, and the ambulance got there, and she said, I'm feeling better now. I would like to just go leave or find a pastor and pray with them. And I was like, you actually have to go to the hospital. There will be a deacon or whatever there. But I don't know what they call hospital pastors anymore. But
the chaplain.
Like, chaplain. I said, there'll be a chaplain there. And she goes, and I said, I'm not paying for this ambulance. And if you don't go, I understand. But I'm cutting you and all 8 of your friends' wristbands, and we're escorting you off the grounds. So you can pick which one. And she got on the ambulance, and everything was fine.
Why do people do that? I mean, that like,
especially at Cornerstone, even like
it's a lot of emotion going. It's the same as when you go to a church and the lights are set just right and the fog is just right, and you play the correct E minor chord. And you have a moment that's emotional.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not denying that the Holy Spirit's there or not there, but you can set this mood, and it's dangerous, So that's where you see a lot of kids from small towns go to these festivals. They don't even know how to deal with that kind of emotion that they've experienced in this group of thousands of people, and they're all excited. Again, you feel this emotion. Tim and I felt it at Stavesacre, and there's probably people that would say they felt God's presence there. And I when people ask me, I was like, well, I definitely had an emotional experience.
Yeah. And it's, honestly, some of I couldn't even itemize them. I mean, so many like super deep. I mean, were you at Ragamuffin Band the year after Rich Mullins died? One of the most spiritual moments of my life was that show at Cornerstone.
I've heard that.
So much great stuff. So, well, tell me. So this, I knew we were going to go in all directions because you've got so many good. Everything that Brian's been involved with is worth talking about.
Right.
I did record
just for simplicity's sake. What was the beginning of the Blamed like? What were you trying to do with the Blamed, and what did you think? And
it was a side project to my band Rocks and Pink Cement, to be honest.
They kind of did well, I think.
Well, but the trajectory for Rocks and Pink Cement in the late 80s. So if you followed the Labeled podcast at all, when they tell the Tooth and Nail story, so does Billy Power on some of the old school Urban Achiever. There was a pivotal show in Seattle, Washington with Scattered Few.
Yeah. And
Brandon Ebel was at that show. Billy Power was at that show. Mikey Bridges was at that show from Sometime Sunday. And that show was a big precursor to went on to Frontline and Tooth and Nail. But believe it or not, Rocks and Pink Cement was the opening band for Scattered View at that show.
Oh, wow.
So we all talk about how we were all in the same building at the same time. And I didn't know Brandon or Mikey, but I met Bill.
Yeah. Wow. So, and therein is history being made.
But so the funk thing, like, so believe it or not, Rocks Pink Cement was my high school band, and it was like funk punk.
Yeah.
It was also a little heavy, so it had some like Faith No More to it. So there was like a little bit of a trajectory of like the Christian music scene was looking for something like that. But again, they're always behind the times. So that band was kind of relevant at the time.
Yeah.
We were doing some of the Jane's Addiction thing. We were doing some of the Chili Peppers thing. But we were also doing some of the Crucified thing and Primus.
God, Brian, you didn't even know this. You said the right thing with me. Jane's Addiction is one of my top 3 favorite lifetime bands. I
agree.
love them. Oh my
I
God.
completely agree. But so that was the Northern California scene back then. So we had some people talking to us, but we were young and dumb. So like they were like, well, your demos sound dumb. And I was like, well, it was recorded on a 4-track by a bunch of 18-year-olds. Like, what do you want it to sound like? So we I started the Blamed as a side project to that, to just play with my friends.
Wow. And so what was, and I ordinarily don't ask stuff like this, but like the ministerial aspect of it was kind of different in those days. What was your goal with that? I mean, were you trying to be like a ministry band, or were you?
Well, I guess the term I coined is evangelical, but yeah, we were kind of like, we just saw it as we're a Christian band. We just go out and play Christian music, and we're not afraid to be Christians at these venues. And I'd probably share it every night that we played, but it wasn't ever, I'm a horrible speaker. So you've heard me talk from stage. I sound like
we know that's not true.
Did you go beyond the standard, what is it? We do this for Jesus Christ, but make sure you check out our merch table. We'll be in the back, guys.
We try to keep the merch table first. Hey,
okay, gotcha. Yeah.
We have merch for sale. You should buy it so we can be Christians. And
yes,
but no, we just wasn't like that. Our whole goal was like, I don't know the right word. I mean, to be authentic, to just be real. I remember playing
love on people.
Yeah, I remember playing shows where they were like, "All right, so you're here. Good to have you. So tonight you're going to do an altar call," and I'd be like, "God didn't send me that fax. I ain't doing that."
So that's kind of one of the themes that we've kind of had pop up throughout the shows, or like, especially with the last one with Luxury, that kind of being felt like they're cornered by the Christian market. Did you ever feel that way? Did it ever change the way that you did things, or did it change your views on things?
I'm really sarcastic, so if anything, it just raised the cynicism flag or whatever,
right?
My cynical flag, because like there was a concert venue you have to imagine, so the Warehouse.
Yeah.
This podcast is about the Warehouse. Initially, I played the Warehouse in '93. It's my first show. It was among a list of Christian venues in America that were the best. Was the Warehouse.
Right.
And I'm not just plugging it, like that was a thing. Like when I heard we were going to play the Warehouse on the Crucified tour, I was like, I heard nothing but huge things about this. Then my next tour with Mortal, not with Crucified, we were playing the King's Place in Ohio, another famous venue where they they were just known for having a large crowd, a lot of people, good. They took good care of the bands. They paid you. They got you hotels. You just, as an artist, you remember those things. And if you are trying to be involved in ministry, I mean, those things don't hurt, so I don't want to say they help because that sounds really lame, but I'll start to sound like that pastor that needs a jumbo jet or something to do God's will. But then like the New Union in Minneapolis was another one. And then, so I remember going back years later, I went there with Mortal, and it was a little spooky spiritual for my taste. And I remember going back with Mikey Bridges from Sometime Sunday, who's rough as heck around the edges. And so they did like what the Chris story made me think of this, because I listened to that podcast with Chris. And I remember them cornering you. And I was like Chris said, I would just avoid it, because I already done it with Mortal. It was like all the wives of the leaders ran this venue. So they would corner you, take you down to a room, and you were in there with a bunch of women that wanted to pray over you. And they were very charismaniac. So it was a little bit like out of my comfort zone. But I'm a believer, so I'm definitely one of those people. I'm cynical about that stuff, but I also know better that, Tim and I talked about it at Furnace Fest. I've seen mountains move. There's things in God's name I can't unsee. So sometimes I just have to shut up. Yeah. But I remember they made us all hold hands. I didn't want to hold hands with some girl, so I think I crawled in between two Sometime Sunday guys and held their hands. And then they started praying. I think the leader lady prayed. And when she started praying, all the other folks started doing the shamanama ding dong stuff or whatever. And then Mikey, it was funny enough when he was like, he's real loud and he's like, hey, shut up. I can't hear what she's praying. Like, it was so intimidating and scary, but it was just hilarious that's where Mikey went with that. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my version of the answer. Listening to Christopher Foley's thing, it made me think of that experience.
Well, and I think that was something you really hit on, something that was very true of that whole era. It was kind of at the same time, super permissive of stuff, but like really draconian on other things. It was weird. I mean, like I came, like we joke about our dear friend Jason. If you hadn't listened to the Jason Elmore podcast, so you should listen to
it's episode 1.
Yeah, he's great.
Episode 1, okay.
Well, he was like, you met him, I'm sure. He was like basically the pastor at the warehouse, but like he always describes people around here as everybody's a recovering Baptist, and I'm definitely a recovering Baptist for sure. And so when I was brought into this, like all that stuff was absolutely out there for me. I mean, the laying on hands and the all this kind of stuff, we didn't do that in the Baptist church at all.
No.
It was weird because like it was everything but the kitchen sink, you're right, was acceptable, but then they were really draconian about depending on where you were, like you have to do an altar call or you're not going to do an altar call or something. Or
the pastor's going to do one before you play. Just like we had that all the time with like what Luxury said. And I think our tactical move, because I speak the language, is I would go to the pastors and like you get to a show and they would say, Pastor Tim Hudson's going to get up before you play and deliver an altar call and a message. And I would go, great. You hired us for our ministry to be effective. We have to play by 9:30. So I don't care if Pastor Tim Hudson gets up there and talks, but at 9:30 we got to start.
Yeah.
And then so that would help rein in some of the wackiness. So like so a lot of times the pastors, but that would happen then the pastors would turn around and cut all the opening bands by 10 minutes. And I was like, but we make fun of pastors too, because there's that fine line of like, where is God leading? Or do you like the sound of your own voice?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I always liked playing shows where there was like a praise and worship. Like we were kind of like the afterthought of the event, and like the praise and worship band would get mad because they were just like, we were entertainment and we were hacks. It was like watching college wrestling, and then there was a guy that talked for 20 minutes, and then we had professional wrestling that would happen. Yeah. And like all the collegiate, like Kurt Angle's mad because we just Undertakered everything. And it's like, those were the shows. Cause I was in like a little small punk band that we were all preacher's kids. Like that was kind of our way of getting into the music thing. And we were all PK. So all of our dad's friends, they were always like, hey, come play our Saw You at the Pole rally. And we're like, oh man, we're so big, bad. And we show up. And then there was always just like some random thing that would happen where like, they would always con us into having one of their praise and worship people like do a song with us, and they wouldn't know what was going on. So they were just like the little John hype man, like in the back going like, praise God. And it's like, this song's about a girl. We just, But okay, man, you like do your thing.
Well, to speak about us a little bit, that was something we were always really proud of at the warehouse. Was we were okay with whatever. If we'd have supertones who would have full on altar calls. I mean, like come down front and get saved kind of stuff, and then we'd have like MXPX, bands that didn't do anything. And so we were always kind of like, we feel like our role is just to give a platform to whatever it is that you're doing. Like,
when you trust your artists.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so back to what you were saying. So what was, whenever everybody's talking up the warehouse and you actually got to the warehouse, what was your impressions of it?
Well, I mean, the warehouse was massive. I mean, like we got there, it was a Crucified Immortal. So I'm already on my dream tour. And the show was packed. People buying merch like crazy and just excited to be there, excited to meet you. And so, I don't love the Bryan Gray from the Blame thing all the time. So when I was in Mortal, I was
you were different there. It was Brian from Mortal.
Yes. But I was the roadie. So they would get done playing and I would load the van because Gyro and Jerome were really the face of the band. And then, but you played those shows, Crucified signing autographs, Gyro and Jerome are. And I just remember being like, I'm happy to be here and be a part of this, but nobody really knew who I was. I get off the stage, put a baseball cap on, and I'm just another nobody, So it was great seeing the Crucified from the side stage at the warehouse, going out in the audience and watching. I just got to do whatever I wanted, And I was literally like that dumb kid I've said on other podcasts. My first year of touring, I was the dummy that wore the laminates or something around my neck. And I was like, Wayne's World, I want to go watch the Crucified.
Yeah, I'll tell you something funny about that, bro. I'm not cool. Any attempt at cool, it's just an attempt at cool. And as you know, one of the cool things that is actually cool is to not wear the laminate around your neck.
No, you wear it on your waist.
Yeah, wear it on your waist. So I get the one at Furnace Fest. I'm trying to figure out how to put this darn thing on my waist, and it was impossible. Like the little clippy, it just would not work that way. And so I was like, and this was 2 months ago. And so just completely defeated. Like, God, I can wear this. Here I am with my
proud. Yeah, is Mom about to be 50? Anything I can do that's lame, I'll take it.
I'm not even trying anymore.
When we had Reformation Fest, the church that I work with made me give out our church's lanyards with the band and staff laminates. They're like, "Ooh, this is a great way." And then I just found 400 of these things laid out in the trash somewhere, where they ripped them off. So
somebody's hanging one as a souvenir.
Yes.
I'm a dad. I have a 20-year-old, but when he was little, we lived at Jesus People and we wanted to have a fun birthday for him. We signed out a room. They have rooms at Japuza. You could sign out. And we set up a bunch of TVs to play video games for the kids. That's what they wanted. But they wanted it to be cool, like a club. So I remember we had somebody at the front door at a desk. And if a kid walked up and was they were like, "What's your name?" And there was no names on the list, but they would hold up a piece of paper. And we my son and his 5 best friends all had laminates with taxes and stuff. That's how lame I am now that I was I know how to do this and I'm going to make it a best birthday party ever for a 8-year-old or whatever he was.
Are you kidding? If my name was on the list and some scary guy was and he'd been like, "You're in," that would have been, I'd have been like, so again, you've done so much relevant stuff. So tell us a little bit about being one of the original bands on Tooth and Nail. What's your first impression of it? What was your first impression of Tooth and Nail?
I was there behind the scenes so much, it's hard to answer. Because when I joined Mortal, when I joined Mortal was Gyro and Jerome. It was a 3-piece. It was them and Rob Walker from Wish for Eden on guitar. And my first show was with Johnny Vasquez on drums from Vengeance Rising. And then my second show was with Jim Chaffin from the Crucified on drums.
Wow.
And Rob. And then Rob said I'm quitting to do my band Wish for Eden, and we're signing to Tooth and Nail.
And I'm sure when you got a hold of that Wish for Eden CD, it was like, dang, this is legit.
Well, I had all those demos and stuff. They have a second demo. I don't know where it is, but man, that thing better than the record. It's pretty insane.
Well, but I mean, like Tooth and Nail, like just everything. I mean, not trying to dog on any of the other stuff, but I mean, if you look at a Forefront record versus a Tooth and Nail, like just the packaging, even. I mean,
they own the scene. I got signed with my other band, Left Out, to Flying Tard Records. Nobody cared.
Honestly, I think I had that sampler though. I think I got that sampler that Left Out was on from Tard.
But you just still couldn't. Tooth and Nail owned the scene. I mean, it was that hardcore. It was just like, you're not MXPX or Focus or whoever, So, but any little bit of success I had with Left Out was because it was the Blamed. Like, we would have to play Blame songs in the Left Out set, which we didn't mind, and whatever to do the band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you saw 6 Feet Deep, because I played with them for a season. I do think I played the Warehouse with them, by the way. They opened for, I think.
You got to show me how to play Broken Tree, by the way.
Yeah. I played that on the record, but
I have tried to figure that out so many times. I could get it figured out.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But like 6 Feet Deep had to fight for their real estate in that scene because Tooth and Nail just dominated. I mean, Brandon Soul dominated 98 is real. He walked in and owned everything. And
then it became Dominate 2008 and then 2018.
Yeah.
it just keeps dominating. I mean, what are your memories from all that? I mean, like, I got the book, the No New Kind of Story book, which is awesome. I recommend that to anybody that's in the scene. You need to get that book. It's got great memories and stuff. What are your memories of it? What sticks out in your mind of being the Blamed on Tooth and Nail? Did we cut out again?
Did we lose you, bud?
I think we cut out again.
Yeah, it froze.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So what was your memories of the Blame?
You're back.
On those?
I'm taking a picture, by the way, while we cut out. I should make it.
So what's your memories of being on Tooth and Nail?
Well, like when it was Brandon Abel sang on my first record, Brandon on one of the songs. So it was very communal. It was in Orange County. I would go into Tooth and Nail and ship mail orders for him sometimes. I was never technically an employee, but I also kind of worked there for a little bit between jobs, and tours and stuff. I think he would pay me in food. It was awesome.
That's the best payment.
We're such big time in this whole thing. So tell me, and I try not to go in spiritual directions with this, but like everything that you've been involved with has just been so inherently spiritual. I mean, tell me about some of that. I mean, like there are the bad things, like the pastor is wanting you to do certain things or whatever, but like what was the things that were like that really, really worked that stick out in your mind with the Did we lose again?
No, I hear about 90% of what you're saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there was a lot of spiritual stuff going on. I mean, because I know that you were really regarded as like solid, in every way. I mean, what sticks out in your mind spiritually about those days?
Just I wasn't afraid to be a Christian. I don't know. Like, I hated the whole everybody fighting and pushing back against Christianity. I was just like, man, I'm a Christian. Get over it.
Did you get that a lot?
No, it was the opposite. You were just around bands that were like so much like we didn't get it because nobody cared really towards us. Like maybe if we were on tour in like Europe, we had a lot of venues that didn't like that we were Christians, but they didn't know what that meant. Mm. So you would go play and they'd be like, "You're a Christian band?" And we'd be like, "Yeah." And they were like, "So you hate gay people and abortions, and I was like, God, that is nowhere close to what Christianity is.
Yeah. And ironically, that's just gotten worse. I mean, it's like people presuppose all kinds, which is well. So what do you think now when you see this scene? I mean, I got to be honest, and I'm not dogging it at all, but like what's on Tooth and Nail right now, I'm really not familiar with hardly any of them. Like, what do you think about the way that like our scene has developed and what it's become? Not that that's bad. I mean, obviously Under Oath and bands like that are killing it and stuff, but
well, I mean, I'm typically pretty anti super formulaic music, anyways. So, so a little bit of it bores me. I love the last Norma Jean record. I love the last Starflyer record that Brandon put out. So those were my Tooth and Nail highlights.
Yeah, I heard that. I haven't got it yet, but I heard that brand new Starflyer is really good.
Really good.
Have you heard that? Like a month old or two or something?
Yeah, it's on Velvet Blue though, so it's not Tooth and Nail. So we can't talk about it. Just kidding.
So how about band? I keep up with a lot of this stuff, especially now that we're kind of doing some music scene back in Bartlesville, or trying to at least. Like there's a lot more openness in some of the bands now as far as pushing the envelope on what's socially acceptable for Christian music. Like there's bands that identify as a Christian band that you hear some of the stuff, like they've got explicit things on their albums and stuff like that. Like do you see that as an issue, or do you see that as like we've grown as a group and starting to figure out that there actually are bigger fish to fry than...
If it's a checklist of things, I don't like it. But other than that, I don't really have an opinion. Like, I don't do it. Like, if I was sitting in a kettle with you guys, I might say a swear word joking around, but I would never say one on your podcast or on my record, just out of respect for our community.
Yeah. It's so funny you said it like that, because I actually had a couple of and then it's important to note this was back in the day, like in the the early 2000s, but I'd have people come onto the warehouse and say stuff, and I'm like, the hell, like, you, honest to God, like, you you don't know what we're doing, like, what are you trying to do to me? And like, and I mean, I would have, like, no joke, I mean, I remember one time we had a band, and ironically they were really nice, like MXPX was touring with Homegrown, maybe, I think it was somebody that was General Market, and they were giving away like these samplers, and apparently somewhere on the sampler was like a cuss word or something. And I mean, I heard about that forever. Well, I mean, people being like, can't bring my kids there anymore. No.
But I mean, you guys were a venue that was, believed to be a safe place. And a lot of people forget the history of Christian music in the 90s. I play with my scissors as a nervous habit, but in the 90s, as a parent, you have kids, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Like, how old are your kids?
They are 18 and almost 20.
Yeah, it's about the same age as mine.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that with our kids, right?
Yeah.
If your kid said, Dad, I want to go see Tyler, the Creator, what did you do?
Yeah, no, I get what you're... Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Got it. I did it. I took him and I said, but I'm going with you. And I think at one point he hit a point where he's like, at that like pubescent rebellious thing, was like, I want to go to that show, but I don't want you to go with me. And I was like, and I'm not taking you to that show. Just sorry. My job is to keep you safe. End of story. But so in the 90s, parents were looking for a place like the Warehouse. It's safe. It's a Christian venue. It's got a pastor that's signed off on it. I could take my kids there and drop them off, and I trust that they will not be fed cuss words, penises, whatever you guys dealt with as a backlash.
Couldn't keep that promise, though.
Yeah.
I know. But you know what I mean? Like, it was, a lot of people forget that history, that then when you had even overflowed into, I think when I played the King's Place was another place I mentioned, famous Christian venue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if it was like, maybe my sister came out and we were leaving the venue and I was going to ride with her to the hotel. And the Mortal guys were like, you can't ride with her. And they're like, I was like, what do you mean? They're like, she can't go to the hotel. She can meet us at Denny's, but we can't have the image that we're leaving the hotel with chicks. And I was like, it's my sister. That's gross. But but that was a thing. So it stemmed out into that.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny too that like everybody kind of is an island to a degree. I mean, we've all got our own experiences and stuff, and like people don't understand my experience, like we don't, you know, people don't understand yours, and so where we're coming from things isn't from the same level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think it's interesting, like looking at these tooth and nail bands and thinking, God, we dreamed about that. You know what I mean? Like that, like being on Warped Tour and like all this other kind of stuff. And
but I mean, imagine all those bands got on Warped Tour and they're all on their buses drinking beer and hanging out. I don't care. You don't care. But in 1994, you would have been canceled out of the Christian music scene without a question asked. The standards were different.
Well, I think I mean, that was still even kind of a bigger deal. I know, like with the Under Oath situation, when Spencer left the band and then the band went on hiatus for a little bit, a lot of the stuff kind of stemmed from Spencer really befriended Fat Mike when they were on Warped Tour. And there was a big uproar about that. There was kind of this straight edge, legalistic kind of point of view from the Christian world. And he was seen drinking some beers with Fat Mike, and that kind of caused this whole band ordeal to happen. Now you come back to it and it's like, are they a Christian band? Are they not? It like we talk about the 90s, but even late mid 2000s, 2010, it was still kind of unheard of.
Well, it's also hard to admit that we completely railroaded the Christian music scene. It doesn't really exist.
Right.
You have to have festivals like Furnace Fest that embrace the Christian artists and just put on a good festival. And
and our band's killing it too. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. But that's where it's just tough when you're looking at that stuff from a historical level. I love the history of it because I was there, but it's just different. It's even like how nowadays, if I had an opinion, and I won't say it on any forum, about same-sex marriage, about Donald Trump, about Joe Biden, about Obama, whatever. Like, we can't go online and say how we feel and celebrate our differences because we are out there to cancel each other. It was like that. But it was like that in '94, except for we saw Tim Hudson having a beer at a show. He's out.
I remember that show.
But I know bands that were canceled in the 90s for doing that.
Oh yeah.
So that's the culture's still there doing the same stupid stuff. And it's all based out of fear is my point with all that. Like the penises at the warehouse and the swear words. It's all out of fear. I mean, some of it's the venue. The families trust the venue.
Right.
But it's still rooted in fear. And I believe the current modern day polarization is still just rooted in fear.
Well, and it's double sad because of anybody, we should be the most fearless. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
We believe we have the answer. We think we've got the ending to the story. You know what I mean? And like, we shouldn't be intimidated by these things, but like, we continue to mess things up, you know?
Well, it also gets into that certainty culture, where like we stopped learning how to listen a long time ago. So,
well, I think at the risk of getting uber spiritual, I mean, I adore where it talks about he meets us where we are. That is so important to me. You know, I mean, and I think about the thief on the cross. I mean, it's like you don't have to do something to put yourself back into good graces before you try and, you know what I mean?
What are you telling me? I can go to heaven in my Mastodon shirt?
I think you could.
Whoa! Shots fired.
Now there would be some non-recovering Baptists that would disagree.
Yeah,
right. Oh, my dad stays on my butt about that all the time. I mean, even in my 30s, my dad's like, your church lets you wear a Black Sabbath shirt to work. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, they love their stuff. You know, like it's sad that that's still the thing that I had a talk the other day and they're like, well, what are you going to say to somebody if they talk to you about your tattoos and your man bun? I was like, I just tell them, thank God you're not Jesus for the both of us.
Yeah. Well, I was watching an old interview.
Just look at this. My wife is calling me right now.
So Rhonda Hudson.
Yep. Perfect timing. I saw an interview with George Harrison. It was an old interview with all this Beatles hype going on.
Yeah.
Where he was telling the story of Paul McCartney getting interviewed about doing LSD. And the interviewer said, have you done this? Because they wanted to talk about the influence he was having on the youth. And Paul McCartney, I guess, said, you're the one telling people I've done this.
Yeah.
Not me. But I'm not going to lie about it. And I'm not going to hide from it. But you're coming to me and asking this question to tell the world what I'm doing. So just be aware of that. And I always thought that was such a great response.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too that like a lot of the truth comes from places that you wouldn't think it would be. You know what I mean? I remember, I'm sure you do too, Brian, when, so half of the, honestly, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. First time I heard Stairway to Heaven was when they were telling me I was going to go to hell for it. And I was like, led who? What? Half of the stuff that I turned into Beatles was one of them. I remember they were, and of course this would have been like 83 or, somewhere in there. And it would be like Queen's gay, the Beatles do drugs, Black Sabbath, you know what I mean? And
well, I think it's funny too that now like we're kind of like on Talladega Nights with all due respect, and then you say whatever you want to. Now our thing is, well, it's not our story to tell.
Yeah,
but this is what they did.
Exactly. It's like, you know what the Beatles did? They put out a bunch of good music.
Yeah.
You know what Queen did? They put out a bunch of good music.
Yeah.
Did you say Queen or Creed?
Both.
Okay. I know I'm not supposed to plug, but Barstool Sports bringing Scott Stapp for a halftime show. That's pretty cool.
No Creed Aiden here.
No,
we were, and it's kind of funny. I don't know why this keeps coming up in the discussions, but like in the time that the Warehouse was really thriving and stuff was when Marilyn Manson was big, and that was a constant topic at the Warehouse. People were always talking about Marilyn Manson.
They're always going to.
I tell you what, I had to play alternative to Marilyn Manson concerts in cities.
Oh.
Was it like recommended if you like Marilyn Manson?
No, it was like Manson was playing at the stadium. Yeah, the church has an alternative for you to bring your kids to.
Oh, we had a church like that in high school that did the same thing with proms. Like the prom alternative.
Morp.
Yeah.
That's what they called it, like prom backwards.
We didn't get told it was that until we got there.
Oh,
I remember one of two times I was on the news. And it was in Oklahoma. I think it was Oklahoma City. Yeah. I got there and they're like, what is it like to be the alternative to Marilyn Manson? Do you think he's biting the heads off goats? And I was like, no, he's making money and y'all are dumb. And so
I'd have probably been like, that new record's awesome.
Did they ever coin you guys as like the protest to Marilyn Manson? Like, did you ever get that type of hype?
Well, it wasn't the blame because we weren't sounding nothing like it. It was just we were the band they booked.
Right.
Wow.
So was anybody. It could have been Tim Hudson and the Funky Bunch. It didn't matter. They were just, this was a band. This was the alternative. It had distortion and yelling. Alternative to Marilyn Manson.
It's totally funny too that like that's another aspect of it that we don't really think of that much, but like it became such a scene that they felt like if you were just in the scene, like these guys they're with us. They're gonna go against Marilyn Manson.
Well, like I said, a lot of times we didn't know because it's pre-internet.
Yeah.
So you'd show up to the show and they'd be like, you'd see the flyer and you'd be like, oh, seriously? Okay.
I was telling my kids the other day, I think I may have even told you this, Brian, because actually I think it hadn't happened before Furnace Fest, but I took my daughter to see Kiss, her first show,
Yeah.
Like about a week after or something. And I was telling her, like, you wouldn't believe that, she didn't know anything about them at all. And I was like, you wouldn't even believe the stuff they used to say about these guys when I was a little, spitting blood. And I mean, all kinds of
knights in the service of Satan.
Oh,
yeah, I know. It's so dumb. I have to go. Did we get enough
Yeah,
covered?
we do. I was just giving him the sign.
Brian, seriously, thank you so much. And at the risk of being like nerdy, seriously, thank you for everything you've done for the world. I mean, no joke. I mean, the warehouse obviously thanks you. We felt the effects of what you were doing, the influence of everything. We traveled to Cornerstone and saw what you were doing there and everything. And I really, really, really thank you for just doing what you've done.
Thanks for carving out time for us today too.
Yeah. Well, you could tell Tim Cook, I brought POD to Cornerstone the first year, and I'm still waiting for my 3% check from all the success.
How do you think we're making this bad boy?
Yeah, exactly. But no, thank you very much. And I'm very thankful to be a part of it and that you wanted to have me on here. And keep up the good work, man. This is a cool podcast.
All right. We love you. Keep doing good.
Awesome. I'll see you guys.
We'll see you at Furnace Fest.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Have fun.
Bye.